He laughed while they towed away my wheelchair van with me, still inside. 5 minutes later, the Marines I once commanded surrounded the building and blocked every exit. This single act of cruelty unleashed a brotherhood no badge could silence. What happened next shook the entire town and reminded America who we never leave behind. "They really just gonna tow that cripple as van like that?" a teenager said under his breath, and then I heard it. The laugh. A sharp, smug, mean laugh that sliced through the heat like a blade. It came from a uniform, Officer Kyle Branson. Tall, muscular, white, 30-something. Too young to remember war, too arrogant to understand pain. He leaned on the hood of his cruiser, chewing a toothpick, watching as 2 men in a tow truck chained up my van, like it was some piece of abandoned junk. My wheelchair-accessible van, my legs, in a way, should be parked like a real man. He sneered, loud enough for the small gas station crowd to hear. I could not move fast enough to stop them. I never could, not since Fallujah. The VA said I was lucky to live. Some days I did not feel that lucky. Not when my service, my sacrifice, ended in moments like this, humiliated under the sun by a boy with a badge. I reached for the window, struggled to open the door. "Sir, please." Too late. The winch jerked, and the van jolted forward. I nearly toppled out of my seat. The crowd gasped. Some turned away. One woman pulled out her phone, but did not record. Cowards. They saw what was happening. "Don T, fight it." "Old man." Kyle said, "It is protocol. Protocol to tow a disabled veteran's only means of movement while he is still inside. Should be thought about that before blocking a fire lane." I was refueling. He raised his sunglasses, met my eyes. His grin widened. "Then maybe next time. Roll faster." I looked down at my lap. The medals engraved in my dog tag shimmered under the sun's betrayal. Purple Heart, Navy Cross. A folded flag still sat in my closet at home, one they handed me when my buddy Tom did not make it. Now here I was, reduced to a joke. The van disappeared into the horizon, and the officer turned back toward the crowd. Nothing to see. "Folks," he winked at a passing couple and got into his cruiser, like he had just finished his daily crossword puzzle. I sat on the edge of the gas station curb, sweat trickling down my back, staring at the spot where my van had been. Something in my chest cracked, not a rib, not a bone. Something deeper. I would face raw pegs, sniper fire, explosions. But this hurt in a way I could not name. Not because of the tow, because of the laughter, because of the silence of the crowd, because in that moment I realized something dangerous. I was not angry. I was remembering. You see, I used to command men, Marines, brothers. I was Captain Jacob Lee of the 2nd Battalion. 1st Marines. They called me Ghost Bear. There was not a single firefight we backed down from. We did not run. We did not forget. And we sure as hell did not leave one of our own behind. And yet here I was, left behind by my country, by the law. A little girl in a pink dress walked by holding her mother's hand. She pointed at me. "Mommy, why is that man crying?" I had not even realized. The tears were not loud. Just steady, salty, honest. I wiped my cheek, forced a breath, and whispered to no one. They think I am weak. But war teaches you something important. It teaches you how to wait, how to remember, how to strike when the time is right. I picked up my phone. My thumb hovered over a contact labeled Charlie Actual. It was time. Because when you mock one Marine, you do not hear from him. You hear from all of them. And they were not far. My name is Jacob Lee. I am 62 years old. I served 3 tours in Iraq and lost both legs in the last one. People hear disabled vet and picture someone helpless, slow, irrelevant. I have learned to live with that image. I have even played into it. Some days. But let me make something clear: what I lost in limbs, I never lost in memory or in pride. I live alone in a small house just outside of Elgin, Texas. Simple place. Nothing fancy. I have got 2 old rifles mounted on the wall, not because I plan on using them, but because I remember the men who carried them beside me. My neighbors wave sometimes. But mostly, I am invisible. Just the guy in the wheelchair with the service dog and the rusting flagpole out front. The VA sends a nurse twice a month. Other than that, I handle things on my own. Groceries, cooking, even the lawn, well, what little grass there is in Texas heat. My van, that van was not just transportation. It was freedom, a modified Ford Transit. Fully adapted. Took me 2 years to get the grant approved. Another year to fight the state for custom plates. All so I could drive again. Live again. Now it was gone, hauled off by a man who never served a day in his life, laughing like he would won something. That night, I did not sleep. I stared at the ceiling, thinking of the faces of the men who never came home, thinking of how they would react if they saw what had happened to me. We never fought for medals. We fought for each other, for dignity, for the man beside us. And now, I was alone on a battlefield again, but I was not unarmed. I pulled out a box from the bottom drawer of my closet. Inside were photos, letters, maps, and contacts, names of men who served under me, brothers scattered across the country. Some broken, some rebuilt, some thriving, but all still loyal. At the top was a photo. It was grainy and old, taken during a sandstorm near the Euphrates. 11 Marines standing shoulder to shoulder, covered in grit. Weapons slung. Eyes hard. We would just survived an ambush. One of them had taken a bullet through the calf. I carried him out on my back. His name was Henry Ortiz. He went on to become a sheriff in Arizona. Another Tyson Merrick now owned a security firm in Georgia. The biggest one in the picture, towering over us with arms like logs, was Malcolm Ox Bradley. He would gone private after discharge. I would heard he ran convoys in Africa for a while. But the one who mattered most, Charlie Pierce, my second in command. Tactical genius. No nonsense. He ran a bar for veterans in Louisiana now, but he still trained reservists on weekends. He was the glue. If Charlie showed up, others would follow. I pressed his name on my phone. He picked up on the second ring. Ghost Bear. The second I heard that name, something inside me snapped into place. "It is time," I said. He paused. "What happened?" I told him. Every detail. No emotion. Just facts like a mission briefing. He listened. No interruptions. When I was done, he said one word. "Send location." I did, and then I sat in silence. 12 hours later, the first truck arrived. It was ox. Bigger than I remembered. Bearded, wearing a leather vest with a marine patch. He said nothing at first, just pulled me into a hug. "You do not call unless it matters." He grunted. "It matters," I replied. That afternoon, 3 more trucks pulled in. By dusk, 7 of us sat around my kitchen table. All different walks of life now, businessmen, farmers, security guards. But the moment they crossed my threshold, the old fire returned. We were not strangers. We were a unit again. I pulled out a printed map of the gas station and surrounding streets. It had become more than just revenge. It was about principle. About setting something right not just for me, but for every veteran who has been disrespected, forgotten, or thrown aside. We were not going in guns blazing. We did not need to. That is the thing about Marines, we know how to win without firing a shot. Charlie arrived last. He did not even knock. He just walked in, nodded at each of us, and took his seat. "Officer Kyle Branson," he said, placing a manila folder on the table. I did some digging. Not his first abuse complaint. 3 sealed cases. All ignored. One of them, a veteran like you. Different town. I clenched my fists. "Tomorrow." Charlie continued. He learns what Semper Fi really means. You would think a man like Officer Kyle Branson would act alone, just a rogue cop with a bad attitude. But you would be wrong. People like Kyle, entitled, smug, shielded by a badge, do not act alone. They are part of something deeper, dirtier, and in small towns like Elgin, Texas, power does not always wear a suit. Sometimes, it wears a uniform with a badge and smiles for the mayor, re-election photos. The morning after the Marines arrived, we sat quietly in my garage. The sun had barely risen, casting long amber shadows across the cracked cement floor. Charlie spread out the rest of the file. He would compiled Kyle's record. Court documents, city council minutes, leaked department memos. I watched the others lean in. Jaws clenched, fists tightening. Kyle Branson had been protected. His father, retired police chief of the neighboring county. His cousin, deputy mayor of Elgin. His partner on the force, married to the town's code enforcement director. The system was not broken. It was built exactly this way. 3 complaints in 18 months. Charlie read aloud, his voice low and bitter. All sealed. 2 involved property seizures from veterans. 1 involved a stroke patient, whose wheelchair was confiscated during a parking ticket dispute. Nothing came of it. All settled quietly. Because they did not have us. Malcolm Ox Bradley growled. I stayed quiet, staring at the grainy photo paper in front of me. It was a shot of Kyle Branson standing outside a courtroom, smirking beside a city councilman and a judge, their hands clasped in a half circle, like kings of a castle nobody voted for. Ox cracked his knuckles. "We going loud or smart?" "Smart," Charlie answered without looking up. "Always smart." We knew better than to charge in screaming. That was their game. Arrest. Escalate. Provoke. Know we were going to dismantle the structure piece by piece. Like taking apart a minefield, you do not run through it. You kneel. You breathe. And you cut every wire with care. First, we needed proof. Not the kind that could be dismissed as veteran rage or internet noise. Solid, public, undeniable proof. And for that, we needed access. I knew someone. Her name was Leela Monroe, an old flame from decades past. She had served in the Navy, went on to become a cybercrime analyst in Houston. These days, she taught computer science at a local college, but she still had connections. I called her, told her everything. Her voice cracked after I said the words "towed my van" while I was still inside. She did not ask if it was legal. She asked how fast I needed her. She arrived that evening, laptop in hand, wearing a denim jacket with the words "We do not leave our own" embroidered on the back. Within an hour, she would pulled up footage from traffic cams around the gas station. Another hour, and she had the dispatch logs from that morning. The logs showed no emergency, no double parking complaint, no fire lane obstruction call. Kyle had acted on his own. "Want to see something worse?" Leela asked. She tapped a few keys and pulled up an internal department chat thread. One officer had sent a message to Kyle minutes before the tow. "He is one of those vets with the fake tags again." "Take it," Don Teven asked. Kyle replied with a thumbs-up emoji. "Then, bet he will cry. They always do." I closed my eyes. It was not just about my van anymore. It was about humiliation as entertainment. It was about how power, when unchecked, turns into cruelty. Charlie leaned back, arms crossed. "We leak this. We pressure the department. We hold a press conference. We bring in the press, real press. Not the Elgin Weekly Ledger with Kyle's uncle on the board. But will anyone listen?" I asked. "They will when they see who is talking," he said. That night, we gathered outside the gas station, the same one, where it all happened. Charlie brought out a camera and a small mic. The others stood behind me, arms crossed, boots steady. I wheeled myself in front of the lens. No script. Just truth. "My name is Jacob Lee." I began. "I am a Marine Corps veteran, and last week, a police officer named Kyle Branson towed my only means of mobility while I was still inside, laughing as he did it. I have lived my life with dignity. I fought for this country, but last week, I was treated like trash. Not because I broke the law, but because I did not move fast enough. Because I looked weak. The men behind me said nothing. They did not need to. Their presence said everything." I continued. "We are not here for revenge. We are here for justice. For every veteran, disabled or not, who has ever been pushed aside, ignored, or mocked by those meant to serve and protect. We do not want special treatment. We want accountability." Charlie ended the recording and uploaded it that night. It spread like wildfire. Not viral feral. Angry. Righteous. Veterans groups from across the country shared it. Then national news outlets picked it up. By morning, Kyle Branson's name was trending. But he still had his badge, still had his power. And we were not done yet, because the next step was not just exposing Kyle. It was cutting the strings of the puppeteers behind him. They say you know a man has strength by how much humiliation he can endure in silence. That week, I learned the true weight of that test. After the video went viral, I expected some sort of response. A statement. An apology. Maybe even a suspension. Instead, there was nothing. No call from the mayor's office. No visit from the police chief. No acknowledgement from the department. The town acted like nothing had happened, like my dignity had never been stolen in broad daylight. But I knew why. Because power does not flinch unless it bleeds. And so far, Kyle Branson had not lost a drop. 3 days after the video dropped, I got a letter, no return address. Inside, a citation. Parking in a restricted zone. Signed and time-stamped the day my van was towed. Fake it. Backdated. Approved by his partner. Officer Tate. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was insulting how predictable they were. They wanted to bury me under paper cuts. That night, I sat alone in my backyard, under the rustling oak that I planted when my wife died. The air was still, the kind of silence that almost makes you hear the past. I remembered her hands, her way of humming while cutting vegetables, her laughter in the mornings. She used to tell me, some storms pass. Others, you have to walk through. I whispered into the wind, I am walking now. Love. Then came the calls. Are you trying to start a riot? Ma. Lee. One anonymous voice said, don't stir up trouble where there is none. Another warned. A note appeared on my porch the next morning. Tread carefully. Old man. Wheels break easy. I did not tell the others. Not yet. Not because I was afraid, but because I did not want to distract them. We had a mission. And I had a lesson to learn. One I would never been taught in combat. How to sit in the humiliation, without letting it rot you. You see, in war, pain comes fast, loud, immediate. You bleed. You scream. You react. But this kind of battle, it seeps slow, like poison in your coffee. You drink it every morning, thinking it is fine, until one day you collapse. So I stayed silent. I endured. The news kept swirling. Online, people called me a liar, said I would fake my service. One blog wrote that I was milking the veteran card to get attention. They posted an old photo of me in a VA hospital bed, mouth twisted in pain, claiming it was staged. Another forum mocked my prosthetics, said I probably got them from a movie set. And still, I said nothing, because I remembered what Charlie had told me before leaving my house that night. You do not win this kind of fight with rage. You win it with receipts. So I waited. I watched. I kept everything. Screenshots. Threats. Fake citations. But the worst moment came on a Sunday. I went to church my first time in a while. I needed peace. Some reminder that the world had not completely rotted. The moment I rolled in, the pews went quiet. Heads turned. Whispers followed. Is that him? The one stirring all this up. He is making the town look bad. The pastor did not even greet me, just nodded stiffly and turned back to his notes. I sat alone near the back. When communion came, no one offered to wheel me up. When the service ended, they walked past like I was a statue. I would never felt more unwelcome in the house of God. On the way out, a boy tugged his mother's sleeve and pointed at me. Is he bad? He asked. She did not answer. She just looked at me, then looked away. That was the moment. The breaking point. Not the Tao, not the threats, but that look, like I did not belong. I went home and stared at the photo wall in my hallway, dozens of faces. Marines I led, friends I buried, young men frozen in their prime. They would never get to be hated by their neighbors. They died heroes. Meanwhile, I lived long enough to be treated like a problem. I remember whispering that night, maybe I should be stayed down in Fallujah. But the silence that followed was not empty, because at that exact moment, my phone buzzed. A message from Lila. We found it. Dispatch audio. It is bad. You need to hear this. And I knew, like a tide turning at the edge of a quiet ocean. It was no longer time to stay silent. They looked at me and saw a cripple in a wheelchair, an old man rolling alone through the dust of a dying Texas town, a charity case, a nuisance, a man too broken to fight back. But what they did not know, what they could not know, was that I once led men into hell and brought them back alive. I commanded warriors. I built brothers out of blood. And now, I was calling them home. When Leela sent me the audio, I played it once. Then again. Then a third time with the volume turned all the way up. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from clarity. From knowing this was at the final spark that would set the whole thing on fire. The dispatch log was clear. No violation confirmed. Vehicle appears to be in compliance. Followed by static. Then Kyle's voice, sharp and arrogant. Don T. Care. I want it gone. Make up a code if you have to. Then laughter, not just his. Two others. Then, he is one of those charity cripple types. Let us teach him to move faster next time. My stomach dropped. Not from the words I would heard worse in combat, but from the system behind it. The collusion. The casualness. The way they knew they could erase me with one click and one laugh. I forwarded the audio to Charlie. 1 minute later. He called. They messed with the wrong damn ghost bear. He growled. The next morning, I rolled onto my porch and found 3 trucks in my driveway. Dust covered, sun bleached, engines humming like low growls. The boys were back, no longer boys. Maybe, but every bit the warriors they used to be. Ox stepped out first. He wore the same leather vest, but this time had duct taped 2 words across his chest. Unit never forgets. Behind him was Tyson, still lean and lethal looking, arms crossed and sunglasses on. Then came Reggie, quiet as always. With a camera rig on his shoulder, he did not say much, but his lens never blinked. We met in the garage. Charlie was already inside, pinning photos and maps to the wall like we were back in a forward operating base. "This is not just about you anymore, Jacob," he said. "We have got emails, memos, now the dispatch audio. We have got testimonies from 3 other vets who Kyle harassed. One was hospitalized. Another lost his house after a similar tow scam. All of it connects back to Kyle and his department." Tyson leaned in. "And it is all going live tonight." Reggie nodded. "Midnight drop. Full doc. Names. Voices. Faces. Unedited." I swallowed. It was happening. Not just a pushback. A siege. "What is the plan?" I asked. Charlie pointed at a spot on the town map. "The police station. We go public, but we also go present. Live protest. Veterans. Families. Media. We are surrounding that station at dawn. Peaceful. Legal. But undeniable. They want to see what disabled looks like. Let them see strength in wheels and steel." I closed my eyes and breathed in. The air smelled like war again, not of guns or blood, but of resolve, of old ghosts waking up in men who never forgot their oaths. That night, I called every vet I would ever served with who still had breath and purpose, every man who owed me nothing but would ride anyway. They came. From Dallas, Houston, Shreveport, Phoenix. Some limped, some walked tall, some rolled like me, but they all came, by 4. 24 vehicles lined the street outside the Elgin Police Department. American flags flapped in the wind. Service dogs sat by their owners' boots. Wheelchairs lined the curb like armor. One man stood silently, holding up a sign that read, "He fought for this country." You laughed at him. Local news vans pulled up first, then national ones. Then people started coming out of their houses, rubbing their eyes in disbelief. No one expected a Marine formation at their front door. When Kyle arrived for his shift, he slowed his cruiser. His face drained pale as he took in the scene men in uniform, men in silence. And me, at the center, waiting like a general beneath a flag. He stepped out, adjusted his belt, tried to act calm. Charlie stepped forward. Reggie raised the camera. Kyle spoke. "What is this?" My voice cut through before anyone else could answer. Steady, calm, unflinching. "This," I said, "is what a forgotten soldier looks like. And this is what happens when you forget who we are." The crowd hushed. Kyle laughed nervously. "You think this changes anything?" Charlie stepped beside me. "No. This will." He played the audio, loud, clear, on a speaker that echoed across the plaza. The crowd gasped. Reporters rushed forward. Camera shutters clicked. Kyle stood frozen. One of the officers behind him quietly turned and walked back inside. The silence that followed was not peaceful. It was final. For the first time, I saw fear in Kyle's eyes. Because now he realized I was not the only one rolling in alone. I brought a whole damn unit with me. The thing about Marines is we move slow, not out of weakness, but precision. See, the world thinks we are built to explode. Truth is, we are built to endure. And when we finally strike, We do not just land a blow, we erase doubt. When the audio played in front of the Elgin Police Department, the silence afterward did not feel like victory. It felt like ignition, a hush before the detonation. Reporters clutched their mics like weapons. Civilians in pajamas stared with widened eyes. A woman holding a baby whispered, "Oh my God," like she was confessing something. Kyle Branson did not speak, his face twisted, part defiance, part fear, part disbelief that his own voice had turned against him. He looked over his shoulder for backup. No one moved. Not the officers behind him. Not the brass watching from the window. And that is when he knew he was alone. The next 48 hours, the town of Elgin became the eye of a nationwide storm. Reggie S. documentary, dropped precisely at midnight as planned, exploded across every platform, titled Ghost Bear. What They Did to a Marine. It was 26 minutes of cold truth and burned receipts. It opened with footage of my van being hauled off as I shouted from inside. Cut to the dispatch recording. Then came the interviews, vets like me, testifying what Kyle and his boys had done to them. No dramatics. No shouting. Just facts. Dates. Faces. Scars. By sunrise, national outlets were camped outside the station. Ken, Fox, even late-night comedians weighed in. Apparently, you can lose your legs for your country and still be told to roll faster, one host joked. Welcome to Elgin, Texas, where the fire lanes matter more than the men who fought in Fallujah. But the real blow came not from the media, but from the military. 3 senators, 2 former Marines, 1 Army vet shared the video publicly, tagging the Elgin mayor and demanding investigation. The Department of Veterans Affairs released a statement by noon, condemning the incident. And then came the Pentagon. Just 1 line on social media. "We do not forget our own." Signed, Commandant of the Marine Corps. I stared at that post for a long time, sitting on my porch, phone shaking in my hand. For the first time in years, I felt seen. Not pitied. Not tolerated. Seen. Back at the station, everything started to crumble. Internal affairs showed up. The mayor canceled his weekend fundraiser and locked down City Hall. The police chief, an old friend of Kyle's dad, resigned before the day ended. 2 other officers were placed on leave pending investigation. Kyle, he tried to stay cool, showed up for shift, acting like it was all politics, but the public knew. And once the people know, no badge is thick enough to hide behind. We kept our presence. We did not riot. We did not chant. We waited. In uniform. In wheelchairs. In silence that roared louder than any protest ever could. On day 3, a group of high school students came to visit us. They brought water. Handmade signs. One read, "He fought for our freedom. We are fighting for his dignity." A young boy stood before me, barely 12. He saluted. "Sir, I want to be a Marine one day." I looked at him, looked at the way his mother wiped a tear from her cheek. I saluted back. "You already are, son." That night, Charlie gathered us in the garage again. The board was now full of red lines and pins, like we were tracking insurgents. But this war was not on foreign soil. It was inside a town that thought silence could bury truth. "We are close," he said, "but Kyle's not the final link." The council backed him. The towing contract, signed under questionable terms. We follow the money, and we go after the ones who made it possible. Ox leaned forward. Time for them to remember what happens when Marines dig deep. The next morning, the mayor called for an emergency town meeting. Said he wanted to hear the concerns of the community. Translation: damage control. So we showed up not to shout, not to attack but to occupy. I rolled to the podium when my name was called. The room fell quiet. My name is Jacob Lee. I began, and I am not here to make you uncomfortable, but I am here to remind you of the cost of your comfort. I pulled the citation from my jacket, the fake one. I held it up. This paper is a lie, but it is not the only one. Behind this, there is a network of silence, a web of protection, and at the center, people who forgot that public service is service, not self-preservation. I pointed toward the mayor. You let it happen. You let him happen. And now that the world is watching, you are hoping to soften the blow. Murmurs rippled. Someone clapped. Then more. Then the whole room stood. The mayor turned pale. That night, Kyle Branson was suspended without pay. By the end of the week, he was under federal investigation. The towing contract was canceled. Every veteran case he touched was reopened. And me. I got a call from the governor's office. A formal apology. A medal I had not expected. But I did not care about medals. I cared about one thing. That the world now understood. Marines do not forget. And we damn sure do not forgive without justice. They thought it would die down. That the storm would pass once Kyle got suspended and the cameras left. That the men in uniform would quietly wheel away and the old cripple would go back to his corner and be grateful for the scraps of dignity handed back to him. But what they did not understand was this: when you strike at a Marine, you do not just bruise the man. You ignite the unit. And we had not come for retribution. We had come for reckoning. By the fourth day, word had spread to every veteran network across the country. Marines, Army, Navy, Air Force, Coast Guard, brothers, sisters, war buddies, Gold Star families. Men who had not walked in decades showed up in stretchers. Women with prosthetic arms raised handmade banners. Paraplegics with hips strapped to their chairs parked themselves along curbs with eyes like iron. We did not raise fists. We did not scream. We existed, and our presence alone was enough to stop traffic and every excuse. I remember the moment it became real for the town of Elgin. It was a Thursday, dawn. The police chief, Sexov, approached the back gate of the department lot, clearly trying to slip away from press at the front. But the exit was blocked not by protesters, not by noise, but by silence. A single Vietnam vet sat alone in a collapsible chair. Wrinkled hands, bronze star pinned crooked on his shirt. The SUV honked. He did not move. He just looked up and saluted. The SUV backed away, quietly. And that moment repeated, over and over. City council members tried to sneak outside doors for their lunch meetings. But every alley was filled with wheelchairs. Every entrance met with a man holding a folded flag. Every exit was blocked not by violence, but by remembrance. And no one, not one official, not one officer dared push through, because they knew We were the very people they once clapped for during parades. And now, we were parked on their sidewalks like ghosts they could not unsee. Reggie streamed it all live. He titled the stream, American Roadblocks. When Justice Takes the Streets. Millions watched. In classrooms. In hospitals. In waiting rooms where veterans wept quietly into tissues as they whispered about damn time. Kyle's lawyer tried to speak to the press, but the mic was drowned out not by shouting, but by the clicking of prosthetic limbs, tapping rhythmically on the pavement. A slow, deliberate cadence that said, "We are still here." The sound echoed off buildings like a heartbeat rising from concrete. And still, we did not speak. Instead, we passed out pamphlets. We handed out copies of the dispatch logs, photos of the abuse, transcripts from every case Kyle had touched. We did not call it a protest. We called it a formation. And in that formation, every man and woman wore their old dog tags not for show, but as proof. Proof that we would blood for a flag they would wrap themselves in, and now tried to hide behind. That afternoon, the town held a press conference. The mayor's face was drained. Lips tight, eyes darting at the crowd like a man who just realized he was not in charge anymore. He stepped up to the mic, cleared his throat. We acknowledge the concerns of the veteran community, and he paused. The crowd parted, and I rolled forward. Charlie, Ox, Reggie, they flanked me like the fire team they once were. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. No more concerns. I said, "We are not your talking point. We are not your political inconvenience. We are your reckoning." Reporters leaned forward. The mayor tried to speak, but I lifted a hand. "You have made statements. Now here's ours." I pulled out a list. 52 veterans across this state have come forward in the last 3 days, sharing stories of abuse by departments tied to the same contracts, the same procedures. We have receipts. We have affidavits. And we have time. The mayor stammered. We are conducting an internal. We are the investigation." Charlie said. His voice cut the air like a blade. I looked around, at the veterans who lined the sidewalks, at the nurses holding hands with double amputees, at the kids with "My grandpa is a hero" signs, and I felt something shift, not in the town, in the country. Because for the first time, we were not being thanked with parades and forgotten in silence. We were seen. And every exit from every lie, every cover-up, every excuse was now blocked by us. That night, a candlelight vigil formed outside City Hall. No speeches. Just presence, one by one. Names were read aloud not of victims, but of every service member the system had failed. And as each name echoed, the crowd would whisper one word back. Present. When my name came up, I sat still, let the silence wrap around me. Then whispered. Still fighting. It did not happen in a courtroom. Didn't happen in a hearing. Didn't even happen under a roof. It happened right there, on Main Street, under the glare of Texas sun and 100 watchful eyes. No barrier. No podium. No more shields. Just a man. A badge. And the weight of every action he thought would never catch up to him. Officer Kyle Branson was forced to walk through us. That was the judge's condition. His suspension hearing was scheduled for Monday. Until then, he had to appear before the review board, and the only entrance left was through the crowd of veterans that had taken back this town. It was poetic justice. He made me roll through humiliation. Now he would walk through history. He arrived with 2 junior officers, dressed plainclothes but tense as stretched wire. He wore a collared shirt now. No badge. No weapon. Just cacus. Sweat already darkening the collar. But it was not the heat. It was fear. The kind you can tea-talk your way out of. I sat 10 feet ahead, flanked by my brother's ox to my left, massive arms crossed like granite, and Charlie to my right, eyes like gunmetal. Unblinking. Behind me, rows and rows of veterans. Uniforms, caps, T-shirts with unit names long forgotten by the civilians we served, but not by us. Kyle stopped, looked at me, and for the first time since he laughed as my van was towed away, he spoke. "I did not know who you were," he said. Voice flat, dry. Wrong thing to say. I rolled forward slowly, every inch of movement echoing on the street's cracked surface. I could hear the faint tapping of canes behind me, the rumble of Reggie's camera lens zooming in, the hush of an entire town leaning in to listen. "You did not need to know who I was," I said. "That is the point." He opened his mouth. I raised a hand. "You did not see a man. You saw a chair. A weakness. A target. But the mistake you made was not mocking me. It was assuming no one would come." Kyle looked past me. I followed his gaze. Every sidewalk was full. Some standing. Some sitting. One man on oxygen. Another with burn scars, so deep the sun shimmered off his skin like glass. "They came for you?" Kyle asked. Charlie stepped forward. "No, we came for us." Kyle shifted, looking for escape. None left. I leaned forward. "Do you know what the Brotherhood means?" He did not answer. "It means when you knock down one Marine, you better check behind you, because 20 more just landed." I paused. "Let that sink. I did not come to punish you. That is the system's job. I came to show you every face here, every name you did not care to learn. We are your lesson, not because we hate you, but because you forgot we still exist." Kyle swallowed. No. Ox rumbled. "You listen." Kyle froze. The air changed. Even the wind seemed to hush. Reggie stepped up, holding his tablet. Played something. A voice crackled from the speaker. Kyle's voice. "Take it, Don Teve, and ask. Bet he will cry. They always do." Then silence. Kyle looked down. We all heard it. I said, "But the world saw it. Your smirk. Your pride. And now they are watching this moment, too. Don't you think this ends when you walk past us?" He nodded. Slowly, I leaned back. "So walk. Face us. The same way you made me face you when I had no legs and no van." He did not move at first, then he walked, past rows of veterans, eyes piercing into him like bullets. No one yelled. No one jeered. We gave him the silence he once demanded from us. It was heavier than any insult. As he passed me, he paused. I did not blink. He lowered his head. Just for a breath, I said one final thing. Next time, do not ask who a man is after you break him. Ask who is standing behind him. And with that, he passed through the gauntlet of truth and the weight of the brotherhood. Truth does not knock. It kicks the damn door in. By the time Officer Kyle Branson reached the review board Monday morning, he was already a dead man walking, his badge still warm on his hip, but his power long gone. He did not speak. Didn't he smile? He just sat there, eyes hollow, waiting for the house of cards to finish collapsing. Because when the truth comes real, documented, recorded, undeniable truth, no badge is heavy enough to shield you. No cousin in the mayor's office. No contract in the chief's drawer. No backroom promise over a handshake and a bourbon. Not when 100 war-hardened men and women are watching. Not when the whole country's watching with them. The meeting was held in the town's only courthouse. I would been there once before. Years ago, to pay a parking ticket I did not even remember getting. That day, they barely looked at me. But now, the building was full reporters, lawyers, families, and rows of veterans standing shoulder to shoulder like a living wall of testimony. We did not yell. Didn't he chant? Just stood, because truth does not need noise. It just needs presence. The review board began with a rehearsed tone. We are here to consider the professional conduct of Officer Kyle Branson during an incident involving Miller. Jacob Lee, a decorated veteran and citizen of this town. But then the lawyers pressed play. The dispatch audio, the bodycam footage, the tow truck's dashcam, every lie stripped away in real time. Kyle as voice, mocking me. The silence of his partner, the falsified citation, signed before the timestamp of the alleged violation. The laughter, the indifference, the plan. The courtroom did not gasp. It exhaled like a pressure valve bursting after years of built-up corruption and quiet rage. Then came the testimonies. Not mine. Theirs. A woman named Claire Martin, former Army nurse, said Kyle had her car towed while she was inside a medical supply store getting bandages for her amputated husband. A man named Vernon Cheeks, Korean War vet, 87 years old, cried as he said Kyle shoved his walker aside to hand him a citation for obstructing pedestrian traffic. A teen named Levy, son of a Gulf War hero, said Kyle called his dad a washed-up grunt in front of their church. Every voice added weight. Every memory added force. Until finally Kyle crumbled. He did not stand. Didn't he shout? He just whispered, I did not know. But it was too late. You do not get to plead ignorance when your hands are on the wheel. The board read their verdict. Effective immediately, Officer Kyle Branson was stripped of his badge, pending criminal charges for falsifying records and violating civil rights under color of law. The gavel hit, and the badge fell, not just metaphorically. Kyle stood, reached into his pocket, and removed it, looked at it for a long second, then let it fall to the floor. It hit the tile with a sound that felt biblical. A clang. A rattle. Then silence. No one picked it up. And that was the most justice I would ever seen, because real justice does not roar, it lands. Outside, the town had changed. Storefronts displayed signs that read, "We stand with our vets." Local kids handed out water bottles to elderly protesters. A bakery put out cookies with red, white, and blue icing and offered every veteran one for free. We did not plan a parade, but it felt like one anyway. Reggie's live stream hit 14 million views. Donations poured in for veteran support groups. Lila got offered a national cybersecurity contract. Ox was asked to give a TED Talk about peaceful resistance with military precision. And Charlie, he got a call from the Pentagon. They wanted to know if he would consider consulting on reform policy for state law enforcement. He laughed and said, "I will bring my own boots. As for me, I got my van back. But more than that, I got letters. Hundreds. From mothers, sons, soldiers, civilians. One said, 'You did not just fight back. You reminded us what integrity looks like.' Another, 'You made me visit my grandfather's grave and thank him.' But the one that broke me, a little boy's crayon drawing of me smiling in a wheelchair, surrounded by soldiers. Underneath, he wrote, 'This is what brave looks like.' And for the first time in a long time, I believed him. They gave me back the van. Fresh paint. Tires checked. Interior cleaned like new. They called it a gesture of reconciliation. But I did not care about that, because what I gained that week, what we gained was something, no steel frame. No engine, no government token could ever match. We gained a voice. The morning the van returned, I sat in my driveway with a cup of black coffee. The sun had just risen over Elgin, Texas. The air smelled like possibility. I did not flinch when the truck turned down my street. Didn't he blink when Kyle's replacement, Officer Riley, a young woman barely 30 with tired eyes and a straight spine, stepped out and nodded. "We are sorry," she said. I nodded back. It is not about the van anymore. Because by then, the battle had outgrown me. Veterans across the country began organizing. Peacefully. Strategically. They called themselves the Formation. Chapters formed in every state. They stood at courthouses, outside city halls, inside voting booths. Not with anger, but with history on their side. Every one of them wore dog tags, new or old. And every one of them carried a vow. We do not leave our own. The town changed, but so did I. The boy who'd once pointed at me in the gas station, he now rode his bike up to my porch every afternoon, asking if I would tell him stories, not war stories. Life stories. He called me Mur. Jacob said I reminded him of Captain America. Only cooler. And real. I smiled every time, because he did not see a broken man in a chair anymore. He saw something his town had forgotten. A protector. I got invited to speak at high schools, at city council forums, even at a national veterans summit. But my favorite moment came one quiet Thursday, at the local elementary school. The teacher asked me to speak about service. I said nothing for a moment, then wheeled to the front of the class and asked a question. How many of you have ever helped someone without being asked? Every hand went up. Then, congratulations, I said. You are already serving something bigger than yourselves. They clapped. Some stood. That night, I stared at the folded flag in my living room. For the first time in years, I unfolded it, let the stars breathe again, draped it across my lap, not as a symbol of loss, but of endurance. Leela called me, said the Department of Justice had opened a full civil rights investigation. Charlie texted, said the formation had just recruited its 10,000th member. Reggie's documentary had won a National Journalism Award. Ox, he was being interviewed by Time magazine. Me, I still lived in the same old house, with creaky floors and a stubborn water heater, but now I had a driveway full of thank you notes, and a town full of people who looked me in the eye when they spoke, because humiliation had been replaced with honor, silence with truth, and weakness with community. I still have nightmares sometimes, of sand, of blood, of screams. But now, when I wake up gasping, I do not wake up alone. I wake up knowing that somewhere out there, someone is standing guard with the same fire I once carried, and that matters more than revenge ever could. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the oak tree in my yard, I wheeled out and watched it disappear. The boy from next door sat beside me. "Ma, Jacob," he asked, "did you ever think you would win?" I smiled. "Kid, I never wanted to win. I just wanted them to stop pretending we did not matter." He nodded slowly. Eyes wide, I handed him my old Marine cap. He looked at it like treasure. "That is heavy." He whispered. "Good," I said. "So you will hold it carefully. Because that is the lesson, is not it? Respect is not given. It is earned through sacrifice and preserved through courage. And sometimes it takes a van, a laugh, and a town that forgot to remind a nation that service does not end when the war does. It lives on. In us, in how we show up, in how we never back down. In the end, it was not about the van. It was not about one man in a wheelchair or one cop with a badge. It was about the soul of a nation waking up. It was about dignity, about being seen, heard, respected. It was about the truth that those who served, those who sacrificed, do not fade into silence. They become the spine of the very justice we claim to stand for. And when that justice is mocked, belittled, or stripped away, they rise not with weapons, but with presence, with truth, and with unity. Because Marines do not forget, and they never, ever leave one of their own behind. Let this be a reminder to all of us. Never underestimate the quiet man. Never mock the wounded warrior. And never believe silence means surrender. Sometimes, the loudest revolution begins with a van being towed. If this story moved you, if it reminded you of the power of courage and community, please do 3 things. Subscribe for more powerful stories that shine light on injustice and elevate truth. Comment below, tell us what this story meant to you or someone you know. Share this with someone who needs to remember what real strength looks like. Because when we stand together, we change everything.